What's going on, everybody? It is the one and only Q from Retro Q Gaming here, and I was going to talk a little bit about, let's call them prices, consoles, whatever it is, anyway. And I was going to get a second opinion from someone here, and we were just talking away as usual, and then suddenly the conversation turned towards that. So I decided we'd make the best of it. Uh, I'll give you a man who needs no introduction, but he's going to get one anyway from himself. So take it away.
Oh, my name is Too Much Food. I'm just your everyday average Joe Blow on YouTube, big gaming enthusiast, and the guy who it's criminal that I don't get paid for how much I destroy Q and Logic on
Citation
the.
needed. Citation needed. There is objection here. But anyway, yes, this is the one and only food there. I will drop a link to his channel in the comment section below as
Thank you.
well. But anyway, so what we were originally going to do here tonight was we were gonna shoot the shit about price, performance, hardware and all of next gen consoles. But what we were talking about in the meantime was current consoles, Xbox One. Specifically, he was talking about the Xbox One and Xbox One S. Sorry, X, because we were looking at the Jaguar. Now, Food, you were asking me about the Jaguar in comparison to other like old, I suppose you could call them old anyway, hardware, CPUs and whatnot from Intel and comparisons and stuff like that.
Yes.
So the best way I can describe it, like you were saying, you've seen a second gen i5 running GTA 10, GTA 5, 1080p, 60 FPS, and all that as well.
So I said target 60 FPS because it would aim for 60 FPS, but it would drop down to like 45, 48, depending on what's on screen and what's not. But yes, a second gen, and it's and just so that people have some context, it's not that that's what I play with. I don't have a PC, but I was asking Q, what are the capabilities of a second gen i5. So that's where he mentions that it's immeasurably how far ahead it is in comparison to the Jaguar.
Right, right. To just give a bit more clarity as well. We He was mentioning that Food was going to toy with the idea of creating period specific PCs, if you will, or possibly creating them with a second gen i5 or a second gen i7 or something like that, and a GPU. From what I understand, you were telling me like a GPU of around that era as well, and like PC hardware from around that, and use them to play modern games. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, and it just depends on what is it, what USB ports that they would have. So if it has a 3.0 drive, you can use an external GPU and run something a little bit more modern, be it that it's supported. But that's basically what I've seen, and I think it's a cool little rabbit hole. And overall, Q is always telling me about how terrible the Jaguar is. So uh, I just wonder two things, like why would the company go with the Jaguar if it's as terrible as he says it is? And then also, and it's not that I don't believe Q, but the way that I function in my mind is if it is as bad as he says, how is it that I'm getting the performance that I do get with, let's say, the Xbox One X? Because however I know that PC is far ahead and that these other CPUs are far better, but I don't quite think that the One X is a is a console that isn't worth looking at in terms of dollar and performance. Now we're not talking about gaming catalog. We're just talking about a performance to your dollar, and I think $300 for a 6 teraflop console isn't so bad. But I just wonder how we even get there with something like a Jaguar if it's that severely underpowered.
Yeah, so that's like pretty much a nice big broad question, and luckily the way you worded it, we can break it down into individual parts. Now, before we do break all that into individual parts, the one other thing we did talk about as well was it's going back to, looking at the i5 compared to second gen i5. You're probably looking like a 2500K, I think it was, is the i5 of that gen.
Yes.
Yeah, I was thinking that because I had in my old computer I have a 2600K, which is the i7, and I know there is a 2700K, but that was released after I built mine. And oh yeah, so the best way I can describe it is if you look at the specs of any game on PC up until maybe 2018. Now, there was one or two exceptions previous to that, but when we go 2017, 2018, you'd see that the recommended spec of these games would be something along the lines of a third or fourth gen. Maybe not even an i7, but just a third or fourth gen Intel. It might be an i5 or something like that. And that's the recommended spec. That's the kind of thing that you want to run your 120 frames per second, or, well, you might be a little bit bottlenecked. You might get, 80 or 90 or 100 frames out of it. And then you'd look at the minimum spec, and it would be something so old. It would be so ridiculously old. But because going back, they'd just be so basic, even on the Intel side compared to what would be in the Xbox One, even the Xbox One X, that it would just be so far back. Something, it would be a first gen i5 or a first gen i7, because even those, with just how they were fundamentally designed, just completely destroyed AMD. I think I've mentioned it to you a few times, but up until the first generation Ryzen, AMD have been completely 100% irrelevant in PC gaming when it comes to CPUs for over a decade. Like, I can give you the exact, in around the exact time and the exact time frame. It would be about between 2006 and 2007 or 8. Because back then, AMD had the Athlon 64 chips, which were brilliant single-core chips. They came out with the first proper dual-core stuff. The X2 chips, I had a 4800 plus X2 back in 2006 when that just came out. And that was phenomenal. They were king. They were destroying the Pentium 4s at the time. Then Intel came out with the Core Duos. They were good, but not as good. They refined it with the Core 2 Duo, and AMD were dead ever since. Then after the Core 2 Duo, they came i3, i5, i7, first gen, second gen, third gen, fourth, blah, blah, blah. We're up to the 10th gen now. But that just goes to show just how far behind they are when it comes to CPUs in the Jaguar and the AMD stuff. That even something from a first generation Intel i series back from 2008 when those launched completely destroy in every way, shape and form the Jaguar chips. That's at least I say the Jaguar chips when they come to PC. There's one or two exceptions, which not even exceptions, but it's just a question, a point you brought up a minute ago. So you were asking, what was it? Something about performance and just how they're doing what they're doing in the consoles, was it?
Yeah. So what it really like because I view things differently. So like I'll use the analogy about how um, you will like okay, so you'll talk a lot about Nintendo's hardware and like in a negative connotation, but my arguments has always and always will remain whether they get better or not in your opinion, the specs. Um, uh, my argument has always remained that are the games fun? Yes. Okay. Well, I mean, the games are fun no matter what, and that's my point. So, like, I'm using that analogy with the Xbox One X and its Jaguar because, you say that it's severely underpowered, but I'm getting 6 teraflops of performance, and I know that's a number that they like to use and discuss for measuring that of the power of the GPU. But however, we all know that the GPU is tied to it's kind of like, what's the point of having a heart if you don't have a kidney? Because you kind of need each other. They're both
Yeah,
equally as
they
important.
need to work together. And you don't want one to bottleneck the other. So if one is really, really, really underpowered and one is really, really, really overpowered, they're going to hold the other one back.
And so, with that being said, the number that we're getting is with the two being paired together. So I'm impressed with what they've been able to do because the way that I view the Jaguar is, I'm not sure if you had them over there Ireland, right? Am I
Yeah,
getting it right? Ireland.
you got it right this time.
So they over there, I don't know what they called it, but over here we had these things called netbooks.
Oh yeah,
Now,
we had netbooks as well. They're
okay, so
not pretty much
netbooks
a thing anymore, but yeah.
netbooks was an overreaction or a panic, I guess. I don't know if it was an overreaction or not, but it definitely was a response to what was happening economically in 2008 with the financial crisis that occurred in banking sectors and mortgages and subprime lending and all that. So why I bring that up and how that was tied into that was that manufacturers weren't able to sell these items to people because people weren't buying things and they were too expensive. Not that they were expensive, but they were too expensive during a crisis and people were kind of rationing their money. So with that being said, I started seeing netbooks. They just one day appeared like if it were normal. It's kind of like if there were a cat wearing a dog suit in your house, and you're just like, this isn't my guy. I could tell you're a cat. So it's like I'm looking at this netbook, and all you can do is open Internet Explorer, launch a couple websites, and it'd be incredibly slow. So I think of the Jaguar when it comes to these netbooks because that's what they were used for these low powered portable laptops. It's still considered. And then I think of that, and then I think of I think of I'm trying to think like Halo 5, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Titanfall 2, all these 60 FPS games, 4K. Obviously, Halo 5 is dynamic scaling, 4K titles, and you tell me that it's a Jaguar, and I'm just like, you are playing these 4K titles on a potato, and and but you blew me
A
away,
decrepit
and
old potato.
yeah, but I salute that potato because if I were a betting man, and I make my bets here and there, but if I were a betting man, I would bet probably 100 times out of 100 that this potato cannot achieve what Microsoft forced it to achieve, and that's why when you tell me how horrible it is, how then when I say a lot of people phrase their wording, they'll use their wording and go, well, if this, then why does this? But they usually say that as a comeback or a snapback or as a defensive response. When I say to you or when I ask you, then how is it that I could play these games 4K 60 or 4K 30 or dynamic 4K 60? Then why, if it's so underpowered, then why am I playing it like that? And I don't mean that like in a smart ass way, but
No,
like
no,
I'm just
you're
confused.
legitimately inquiring like, how can it do this, and I get that. So there's a couple of things to factor in for all of that. Okay, is when you look at a lot of console games, especially within it's 2020 now, so I'd say within the last maybe we'll go with 4 years because 2016 is where it really started kicking up. When you look at game design and whatnot on PC, now this is on PC, the the fundamental there are things that are just completely missing from like not just pared back, they're literally 100% missing from the consoles because it's just completely 100% incompatible and will not work. So there are all types of calculations, be it physics or whatever else it is, that you just don't see by not playing PC games and not playing them with like settings turned on because the CPU can actually handle them and all that. These are things that can they're just literally not compatible and not able to be computed on old CPUs because of the technology and the hardware, the architecture, and all in them. So you do see a lot of them in there. I have a couple of examples that I'll show you later once we're done here, and you can like look up. I'll give you a YouTube video to look up at your own leisure. It'll give you a great example of some of those, but they're just completely absent. I've played, like for example, the one I'm going to show you is Borderlands 2. Uh, I played Borderlands 2 on the PS4. Of course, I primarily played it on the PC, but then a friend of mine bought it on the PS4, and we started playing it all together. And there was when we were playing it, I was just looking. I had put hundreds of hours into Borderlands 2, and there was like, where's all the stuff? This is missing. Why is this not here? Why is this not here? Why is this not here? And then it just occurred to me, oh yeah, the CPU. and the GPU just can't, because all these calculations were CPU based. So I was like, oh yeah, I forgot, it just can't handle it. All of this stuff is literally removed from the game because it can't be done in it. But that's a one of the big ones. That's why I've always said, and I actually have it pinned as my main video on the channel at the moment, where the fundamental game design will change just on the basis of having a Ryzen CPU in these new platforms. All these physics, all the extra calculations, all the different stuff on a fundamental level that people who are primarily console gamers don't see, because it's something that cannot scale down and is just 100% removed. So the fundamental game design and the nuance, all that stuff, that will all be massively improved just straight away overnight. Or at least when they get a proper next gen game, not one that has to work on Xbox One and Xbox at the same time, or PS4 and PS5 at the same time. But that's one example, or not even an example, but that's one facet of it. Another one is, this is something we've talked about before, but console level optimization. So this is one of the benefits of consoles. What's that? Q said something positive about a console? Oh my god! I know, yeah, you're just dying to jump in and say it.
I can go on and on and on.
But no, the big thing is when it comes to consoles, okay, because they are, like, we were just talking about this in relation to hard drives recently, and SSDs and hard drives and stuff. Because with a console you have a fixed piece of hardware, so that this is exactly what you are designing for. This is exactly the CPU you are designing for. This is exactly the RAM, the hard drive, the GPU. This is exactly how much CPU and RAM that the OS uses. This is what I have to play with. On let's say 100% of these consoles, I know exactly what I'm doing. This actually ties in with the CPU, now that I'll talk about in a minute, with another question you were asking earlier. But because of all of that, they can make these console parts more efficient. Console level optimization is usually what it's called. You hear in interviews when developers and publishers and stuff say that they can really get down to the metal to make it extremely efficient. So because they know that, there's not, Windows running in the background. There's not potential different RGB software or keyboard software, webcam software, different drivers based on your hardware, conflicting anything. There's none of that stuff. When they develop it for the consoles, they know exactly 100% what they're doing. So they can get what would usually be considered, I don't want to say more than 100%, but they can overachieve in efficiency almost. I don't know if efficiency is the right word, but let's just say, I don't know, you could generally get 1 teraflop out of a Jaguar. On the console, they can do more with that. Now there's still a limit, of course. There's still an upward limit, but that's generally how that goes. And a great way of comparing that to the previous one we talked about with the Intel stuff and the comparisons and just how far behind that even the Xbox One X Jaguar CPU is, that they couldn't, because it's still technically an Xbox One. It's not a brand new CPU or brand new anything. It's basically just the same thing with the core clocks turned up, essentially anyway, because they can't change it to a completely different CPU or a completely different architecture, because then from a development standpoint it would be a different piece of hardware, if you will. Like, have you been keeping up with the PS5 and the variable clock speeds and all for the CPU that they talked about?
Yes.
Okay, so it's like that, basically. Think of it as, with the whole PS5 and the way that the clock speeds could go. Think of it this way. When the clock speeds are running lower, it's an Xbox One. When they're running higher, it's the Xbox One X. It's still the same CPU, just running at different speeds. But if they were to change that fundamentally and put in something that wasn't a Jaguar, it would be a different console. It would be a different architecture. It would be something for them different to program. Essentially, it would be a replacement console. Which is why from the Xbox One to Xbox One X, you only see marginal improvement in CPU. Now, of course, they can still even though it is the clock's turned up and all, they can still eke a bit more out of it because of console optimization. So that comes in handy as well. Now, there's also two ways of looking at this. You're always saying that you find it amazing that you can do X, Y, and Z with such a CPU and all as well. Your the way you explain that to me is you always what's the best way to word it? You're more impressed at the technical feat that they can achieve with such old, slow, out of date, low performing hardware. Is am I understanding that right? Yeah.
And yes, and for those listening, if you ever hear from me again on his channel or on my channel, or if you ever see us going back and forth on Twitter, it's usually all in good fun. But I that's he worded it perfectly, and that's how I always look at all of it. I discussed with Q how I want to play the Xenoblade on the 3DS, and he tells me just as it comes naturally for him to breathe. He tells me how terrible it is. But I'm just so impressed that they were able to fit that game onto that console, that handheld, and you get the full game, and then you get the added feature, of course, of your 3D, and it's also on the go. So I'm always I'm always amazed at what these very talented individuals are. I mean, these are educated people. These are people with skill, and it's a team of people coming together to create this work of art on this also work of art being the platform. Now, whether it's a work of art that someone thinks is great, some people think it's the Mona Lisa, and some people think it's their 5-year-old smearing ketchup on the McDonald's table. But nonetheless, I find it impressive. Like the hardware, like the worse the situation that Q describes to me, the more impressed I am, because they got what they got out of it. So it's absolutely that, Q. It's absolutely what you said.
Oh yeah, okay. That just so we could at least get it clear in there as well, just so people can understand that I know we're both coming from different places. Like for example, you're very impressed with what they do and what they can do with X, Y, and Z hardware and all as well.
Yeah, I
For
mean, and pieces and on paper, black and white, ink. The instructions of the coming from the creators of those chipsets are telling you what you can do, what the limitations are of this hardware that you're about to purchase and or install to use for your product that you want to create. They tell you what the limitations are, but these console manufacturers and these developers, uh, you know, basically they wiggle their wand or they do whatever it is that they do, but they go beyond those limitations. They go beyond what the instruction manuals or the owner's manual, I guess I should say,
yeah,
says.
that makes sense. There is some slight caveats with that though. Generally, when say AMD or whoever is giving the Jaguars to Microsoft and all that as well, they have it worked around a theoretical understanding of the, let's call it, the numbers and the architecture of the chip. Now this perfectly complements what you were saying. It just takes in the general raw performance. Let's say we have something that goes at X speed and can do X amount of computations, and they just give it to that. And then with the optimization and how Microsoft are fiddling around with it, or Sony are fiddling around with it, or having it work with their OS, having it work with their dev kits and all as well. That's how they do all that. That's how they can get that console optimization in. They realize what the most efficient way is to do the required stuff, and then okay, well, game developers are going to be doing this, and this, so we'll tailor everything to that. I mean, I think it was recently we talked about the cell, wasn't it? And it was
Yes.
yeah, it was the same way with that. The cell, when you look at what Sony could do with the first party stuff with the cell, it became a very valuable, powerful asset. Granted, it still wasn't really great designed for it, but they could get the most out of it because they spent all that time. They arguably customized their engines and stuff to it and all as well.
Yeah, and that should be Okay, so in this time that we're in this console generation, that is the standard, and it makes all the world of sense. But for those listening that are young, that's never, honestly, that's almost never been the case. I mean, it's been more so than anything. What we've seen is, let's launch a console and then we'll worry about the engine, or we'll let developers figure it out. You would think it would need to be the way that it is now. So even so, when Q talks about the cell processor, it's that's the last generation. And even though that was just the last generation, that was the reality. You know, the cell processor wasn't being tapped out for a long time because the dev kits weren't up to snuff, and they also didn't know what to do to make it better. They had to get to know it. And the thing is that with the PS3, don't worry, I'm not like segueing. It'll all come around.
Oh,
Like the
don't worry.
P,
The PS3 was actually what I was going to use as a great example when you brought up Xenoblade and the whole being impressed by the end product and what they could do with all as well. So don't worry, that fits in perfectly. Go on.
Okay. So, like with the PS3, to me, it's the opposite, but it's the same thing in terms of product and result. So, the PS3 cell processor, super powerful, very impressive on paper, but in their end product, this is what they got: a bunch of giant enemy crabs and demos that were ultimately just that. There were demonstrations, but you would think, well, they were PS3 demos. No, they were not. They were PC demos because there were PC games running on the PC, and what Sony was crossing their fingers, hoping that those games would eventually make it to the PS3 because they kind of just now committed to that happening. And so often did those games never come to the PS3, and then if they did, it was never at that capacity. So, in the same respects, that one is an overpowered one or a very powerful one, but we didn't get to see that because X reasons, dev kits, timing, an exotic chip. And then you look at the 360, where the 360 had its Xenon chips, which was also insane because you
Well,
have.
the 360 wasn't a Xenon chip.
No. Oh, okay. So hear me out. So they would the dev kits needed to use Xenon chips, and so Microsoft at one point was shipping developers the big Mac Pros. They're called like the G something, right? I'm
Oh,
not sure.
the G5s and stuff.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
they
because
would.
they were Power PC based as well, just like the 3-core processor in the 360. Yeah, same idea.
So it's crazy to me that Microsoft, Mr. Windows, had to purchase a bunch of Apple products to send to developers to make games for their product. But anyways, so I was just using that as an example of like what you were talking about with like the development kits, and how just one generation ago, and from that point all the way back, uh, we had this issue in terms of development for these chips.
Yeah, it was all the way up until the Xbox One and the PS4, which use relatively standardized x86 PC based architecture and hardware. Everything prior was individual. Your 360 was a unique CPU and GPU. Your PS3 was a unique CPU and GPU. Your Sega Saturn was unique. Your PS2 was unique. Your OG Xbox is a bad example because OG Xbox was x86 DirectX based hardware like the Xbox One. So
That's just a
there's a fun one
PC.
for you. Yeah, that's basically what it was. It was just a PC. That's the same way it was the uh, OG Xbox 180, the Xbox One, and PS4 are basically PCs. Same with the next gen consoles. But yeah, he pretty much nailed it. Almost every single prior console, NES, SNES, Mega Drive, Master System, N64, PS1, PS2, GameCube, Dreamcast, Sega Saturn, all of those stuff were all each unique. And developers had to do different things. They had to code a game completely specific to one. And then if they were porting it over, completely change it. That's why you'd see many of the multiplats in the 360 era, the 7th gen, you would have most of them were primarily developed for the 360. Granted, it was technically the underpowered hardware, but because it was easier to develop for, they would develop it and then port it over and change a bit of code and all, which is why
That was
most
the
of
greatest common denominator.
yeah, exactly. That's it. It's basically the easiest thing to do. That's why nowadays you see when you look at PS4 Pro and Xbox One X games, they're typically a little bit more optimized for PS4 Pro or for the base PS4 even than the Xbox One X or regular Xbox One. Why? Because there's 45, 46 million Xbox Ones out there. There's over 100 million PS4s. It's the same way with the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X. But to bring it back just a second anyway, to go with the hardware, with what you were saying earlier, the fact that it's perfect that the whole PS3 came out and all that stuff, because that ties into exactly what I was going to say. You brought up Xenoblade on the 3DS. So you're more impressed that they could get the full game running on that low-end hardware compared to what it was on the Wii. And you're more impressed that they could do that and they could have it running and yada, yada, yada. While I understand that, that's not my philosophy at all. I completely disagree with that, or at least I completely don't believe in it in that way. I understand why you do, and I get what you're going at. But for me, the end product, the quality of the end product is the important thing. I'm a consumer. I'm not an engineer. I'm not to one of those people that will sit there and be impressed by the technical marvel of something just existing. A good quality port or a highly optimized port that still ends up being a bad version or a bad product is worthless. Switch games, for example, Doom on the Switch, Wolfenstein on the Switch, Witcher on the Switch. I could go on. The list just continues. Dark Souls remastered on the Switch. All of these games, you can argue that they're now not you specifically, but anyone can argue that they're technical marvels just to get them running on the Switch. The end product is trash. That is completely worthless and useless to me. The reason why I bring up the PS3 a minute ago is in 2013. Now think about PS3 hardware in 2013, not PS4 hardware, but PS3 hardware. Everyone says The Last of Us is possibly the greatest looking game of the 7th generation. I was looking at that game in 2013 and I'm thinking, okay, this looks good for 2005 hardware, which is what the PS3 and Xbox 360 were. It's like, this looks good for I keep saying PS5. This looks good for 2005 hardware, but this is not impressive in 2013 in any way, shape, and form. I was, I play on PC. I play all the important stuff. I play them with the proper quality and more modern hardware. And I'm looking at it. I'm thinking this is a game released in 2013. And then on the other side, I'm looking at all these other games that I play on my PC and all in 2013. I'm like, there's no comparison whatsoever. Just because it might be a technical marvel. And don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about the quality of the game. I love The Last of Us. But, well, I didn't the first time I played it. But anyway, I did a second time and beyond. But just from a technical aspect, The Last of Us was 0% impressive to me. I don't care if they got it great with old 2005 hardware. As a game released in 2013, it was dated to the max. And that's the important thing to me. Simply because when you look at it, like I said a minute ago, I'm a consumer. I'm supposed to be evaluating and enjoying the final product. That's what's important to me. That's the way I look at it anyway.
So with what you say though, this and I'm not using. I'm always trying to be the funny.
I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say. You're going to talk about, but then the Switch and the low frame rate. And,
yeah, okay, yeah. So I'm actually moving over, but to Nintendo overall. But and usually I like to have this charming back and forth, but I'm not trying to be my usual silly self. I'm not trying to be. I'm being dead serious for the sake of for the respect out of the respect that I have for your viewers and your show.
Don't worry. So, we can just shoot the shit as just the two of us. I don't mind if we're joking around or whatever.
So when you say that though, then that means you and I are in agreement in a lot of times, because if you're looking at the end product, then that means you and I are in agreement a lot, because I too look at the end product. Now, I'm not saying that that's what I only do. I look at the technical feat, and I appreciate that, and I applaud and all that stuff. You're saying you're not part of that. I do have something to discuss in reference to that, but I'll bring that up here in a second. I'll continue on the topic of the end product. So with the end product, we talk about the Wii U. I talk about the Wii U a lot because why I think it's more relevant is because it got a second breath, another chance at life. And people would say that that is actually not true. It is the opposite of that. But I say it got a second chance at life because uh, Nintendo would not let go of those titles. They're taking those titles and they're putting it on the Switch, and then the reception that they're getting gives it extra life too, because these games that are exactly the same as the Wii U titles, uh, be it given that it's actually a frame rate change or that it is a resolution change, but all in all, it is the exact same change. So my point is that these games are indeed good, be it running on the low powered CPU that the Wii U has, or the Tegra that the Switch is using. It is just fun. So that means you and I are in agreement on the games that are fun no matter the hardware, correct?
Yes, there is. I do agree somewhat on that. There's a couple of caveats as well. But before we go any further, I do want to just jump in and say here that Food here is the world's biggest Wii U fanboy. Just for anyone who doesn't realize that, he absolutely loves the Wii U. It
Hey,
just
when you hear me laughing, just please picture that Tom Cruise laughing me.
Yeah, that's it. He's sitting there with his head back, his mouth open, the teeth on display, with a Wii U gamepad just stuck between his teeth, and he's just laughing. That's all it is. Like, this is the guy who opted for some reason I think it was 2020. It was so recent, or right at the end of 2019, to
Yeah,
play Watch Dogs.
it was 2019 December.
2019. So, because I remember it was fairly recent. I just didn't remember if it was before Christmas or after Christmas. But he opted to play Watch Dogs 1 on the Wii U at 1152 by 648p with less than 30 frames per second and lower quality than pretty much every other platform. He
But can I,
opted to play that. He could play it on his Xbox One X. I don't know if it's enhanced or not. He could play it on his PS4 Pro. Again, I don't know if it's enhanced. But even the base versions of those consoles would run at a higher resolution than 1152 by 648 and frame rate, quality, all of that stuff. But no, he is the biggest fanboy. He still plays Splatoon. He still plays Mario Kart on the Wii U. Although, granted, that is acceptable because online is free. And yeah, you get my point.
oh yeah, I play Call of Duty Ghost online.
Yeah, he was playing Call of Duty Ghost with the same 7 people, like 100 games in a row. It was crazy.
Yeah, but no, hear me out. So like, and please don't bash me. I mean, you could bash me in another video, but like, so that we don't get off topic, but we stay somewhat topical. So like, I like to play Overwatch a lot, and I have it on the Switch, on the PS4, on the Xbox, and so this is a massive esports game. There's a lot of gamers that play this. But for me to find a lobby, and I hate saying this, and I try not to talk about it publicly because I'm afraid I'll scare people, to not play Overwatch. But it'll tell you that your queue time is 4 minutes, 6 minutes, 8, 10. Let's say it's 8 minutes. Sometimes I'll sit in that queue for 19, 20 minutes waiting for a match.
What platform is this on?
Any of them, all of them.
Oh, all of them.
It's just a long, long queue time, and it's a popular title. I go, and I said these words today. Aside from the talking to you, so I preach it, and I believe it in my soul and in my heart. I go to the Wii U and I put in Call of Duty Ghosts, and I find the lobby just like that, just instant. So I put Monster Hunter in the other day. I went online, find my lobby just like that. It's so online.
We should play that sometime, by the way.
I mean, yeah, well, you probably mean Monster Hunter World.
No. Well, since you brought up the Wii U, I'm assuming you mean Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
I have that. I like that. I have a lot of time in that.
And that would it's a charming game, and it screams quality of it, like the best of all the handhelds combined. But so, anyways, so the Wii U does offer a lot of great things free online. It's a console that believes in that, and I can play these titles that you are paying to play online on the Switch, which is complete ass.
Well,
Uh,
well, you, I realize you're not saying it to me specifically, as in you to play on the Switch, but
no. But like you
yeah,
who
so
play
whoever's watching
Switches,
this video, yeah, because they brought in the Nintendo Online subscription. But for example, Mario Kart 8 is free to play on Wii U online, versus you need the subscription, the pay to play subscription on Switch.
and that is just criminal. It
That is
is
criminal.
criminal. It's not that. It's oh my god. It's not even that you remade it using extra Switch power because believe me, there is extra Switch power. The Switch is supposed to be 300% that of what the Wii U is when it's 100% in terms of processing power. So you could do something to make it look better, make it run better. What else? Maybe add some extra
Effects or
racers,
something like that.
effects. Yeah, better. I don't care if it's cube mapping or ambient occlusion or whatever, but it needs to be something that you feel like okay. So like whenever there's a difference between me and some other people. I know some other people that spend their money going to a park, and I like to spend my money in my home, and I have all these things that I love in my house, so I could show you where my money is. And some people that spend their money at parks, they can't show me anything. They can tell me they went there, and that's all. That's all. I just have to go off of that. So like with the Switch title port, you need to give me something that I could hold on to and be like, look, come over here, Q. I'm gonna point at this. Look how much better this is, and this looks, and all this and that. But no, they took the exact game. They took a sticky note and wrote Switch on it in deluxe, and now you have to pay $20 a year to play it.
Yeah, it's a load of bollocks. I have a quick question for you. This is something that has escaped me because, well, the last time I looked into it was when it was current, and it's a Wii U game, so it was a long time ago. Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U, 720p or 1080p?
Mario Kart 8 is 720p. It reaches 60 frames a second, but for some reason,
Yeah, there's
it
the
likes
one frame hitch every so
yeah,
often. I remember
yeah.
that, but so I guess they did technically do something with it. I know they smoothed out that one frame hitch every so often. That's
Yes.
no longer in the Switch version, and it is native 1080p. So they did something slightly to it. Granted, it's just an increase in resolution, but
Yeah, but
it does require a little bit of power.
I can't show you that though. Like I can't.
Well,
Like
technically you can. If you look at a 720p image on a 1080p TV, you will see a little bit of blur, a little bit of softness. Whereas if
okay.
you'll see
Uh,
it's I can't really say you'll see more detail, but it will be a sharper, clearer picture on the Switch version simply because it's running at the proper resolution, and Nintendo textures are very kiddie and low resolution, so that's why they use that whole like cartoony art style.
yeah, but so the only way that I can. Okay, so I agree with what you said. Everything you said was true, and you went off of what I said, so you're technically correct. But what I was getting at is um, I think 2/3 of the time you can't do that, and that might not make sense to you. But
What do
why I
you
say
mean
two
you
thirds?
can't do that? You can't do
So
what specifically?
show you the upgrade of the 1080p because the 1080p has to be when the switch is docked, and you would say, well, then that's half the time. I'm saying 2/3 because whoever has a switch light can't point that to you. It's running at you're getting 720p and you're getting your 60 FPS. So you're telling me that every Switch Lite owner gets an additional frame every second, one frame per second extra, and that's it.
It's not even that often actually. If I remember correctly, it's like literally one extra frame every like 20 seconds or something like that. It's not even every frame. It's just every like 20 or 30 seconds.
I
But
think
yeah,
it's every 60 seconds. I
okay,
think, but
every 60 seconds. So think about that. And it's only one extra frame every minute. But there is one argument against that, and at the end of the day, this one doesn't really matter because it's still to me at least anyway, it still comes across as irrelevant. But the main reason I say that is because when you look at the amount of actual switches out there versus the amount of switch lights out there, I mean, it's less than 50%. So, I mean,
Yeah,
it's still pretty
but
high. I'm sure
even
it's still probably 30 or 40%. And
yeah,
then,
it
of
still
course, you can
holds
say
true.
people playing in handheld mode and all. But
Yeah. So that's why I say like it. There needs to be a situation where so you and I had a discussion the other day about the older 3DS models having to sit still and stand. You made that argument. I'm going to use that same argument for the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe situation and see if like you could understand, or even if you don't quite understand, feel free to say you don't quite get it, or even if you disagree, feel free to disagree. But
okay, but
to
hold on,
me,
1 second, just before you go into this, right? To explain it to everyone, the other day we were talking about 3D in the 3DS and the new 3DS and all that as well. He argued that the 3D on the base 3DS, it was impressive that hardware and that screen and all could do it, and which goes in line with what he was thinking about earlier with the fact that the hardware can do it. But I was looking at it in the side that yes, it can do it, but the end product was crap because when you play on the base 3DS, you had to keep it in such a still and exact position, or it would just go out of phase, and you'd have a like horrible eye strain, and it would look terrible and whatnot. And that Kid
so
Icarus on the 3DS actually it knew that the base 3DS was so bad with 3D that it actually included a physical stand for you to put down and just sit your 3DS on your desk or whatever. So they admitted that it was so bad that you needed a stand to play a handheld portable console stationary just to be able to use it properly.
So he's using that argument with that, and I feel my own ways about all this. So, but I won't comment on it. And if you do, let him know in the comment section below. Bring back
well,
too much food into a future episode of.
well, I was gonna say feel free if you want to explain now, but it's up to you.
No. This because it's long and direct. Then I have to. Then I feel like I miss out on my point because that happens to me a lot. Anyways, so um, with that being said, if you feel like you with your argument is, if you have to have that stand, then that feature or the hardware or the decision for that brought all this stuff together was poorly designed, or poorly made, or it just does not work, or your point, it's not good. So I'm saying in terms of a port, and I'm doing air quotes, upgrade or remaster, um, and also the $20 fee that you pay. If the only way that I could show you, so here's where our worlds are, parallel now. If the only way I could show you, and I have my left hand, and then one more time I'm gonna say, if the only way I could show you, my left hand, I'll say, if the only way I could show you Kid Icarus running the way it should, it needs to be on this stand. And I'm going to say, if the only way that I could show you 1080p Switch Mario Kart, it is on this TV. To me, that's absurd. That your upgrade is exclusive to the television. That is your upgrade. Not even Zelda Breath of the Wild does that. Zelda Breath of the Wild plays in 720p on what is it? Um, the
Wii U.
the handhold, and it plays 720p as well on the Wii U. Now the game across the board has dips, right? But it has slightly less dips on the handheld and the docked mode. Docked mode's 900p.
Well, I will say that they did fix that. There was 3 patches released within the first month after launch, and now the performance is exactly the same as the Wii U handheld and Wii U, the Switch handheld and Switch docked mode are 99% the same, because you know there's one or two things you might be running in a different place. The camera might be at a slightly different angle, stuff like that. But 99% now it's been fixed.
Okay, so
And you
then
can't say I'm fanboying against a Wii U or something, because you know how I feel about like Switch and stuff. So.
yeah. Yeah, and that's cool and all, and I appreciate the additional information that's up to par, or I guess up to date. I mean, so, but that what you were getting was on your handheld, and then there was a bump in resolution um, when you put it on the screen. But that wasn't the sole upgrade. Like at least during launch, the upgrade was to have the better CPU, better frame rates and stuff. But I guess in this time right now, it runs great on the Wii U and the Switch, portable and docked. But the Mario Kart it gives you a higher frame rate, and you got to pay $20 a year to use those features, and you have to have a TV that's accessible to you to enjoy that. Now, I'm not saying you have to have a TV that's accessible to you, as if I'm assuming you live in some, bushcrafted house out in the woods. You know, I get
No,
that
you mean
everybody
so
has
like
a
that your
TV.
family isn't using the TV or something like
Yes,
that.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Any scenario where you just can't be using it. Like your feature, your number one upgrade is tied behind only, like your fingers are crossed right now. You're going, oh fuck, please please let this be the last episode of Good Girls they're gonna watch on Netflix, because I want to play my Mario Kart that is right now completely identical to the Wii U. Also identical in that the gamepad's in my hand, but then now the Switch is in my hand, and they're just desperately hoping to get to a TV so that they can sit down and go, "Ah, oh, yes, I'm not an idiot. I can see that 1080p now because I have the TV in front of." To me, a bump in resolution is not a selling point. It's just not. It's not.
I will say one thing here. I always throw this back at everyone, because there's so many people that forget this, or that either don't know it or choose to specifically ignore it. But I always throw Nintendo's official line about the Switch back at everyone who uses an example like that. According to Nintendo, they have stated that the Switch is first and foremost primarily a home console. And don't even get me started about the Switch Lite, but the Switch, according to Nintendo, is first and foremost a home console. So,
And that's because they knew the light was coming.
well, probably. I'm sure they had an idea. So if this doesn't flop, maybe we can make a handheld version. But they said that in January of 2017 when they first showed it off. So, uh, yeah, we'll see anyway. But I will say, we got completely off topic.
Yeah, we did, but I remember where I wanted to go
Yeah,
back to.
yeah. I still have it here highlighted on the other one as well. Where were you going with it? Because I was going to go with the 6 teraflop Xbox One X for $300, $600 for 12 teraflop, blah blah blah. Why is the 6 teraflop suck ass? Blah blah blah. Where were you going with it?
I was just going with you're saying that you are a consumer and you care about the end product and you don't care about the technical achievement. So I I understand what you're saying. I think that's completely reasonable. I think that's a smart thing to stand for. You're standing up for yourself and your fellow, you know, I guess
Consumers.
your brothers and consumers in arms.
Oh, you
Um,
reminded me of something actually. That I'll get back to it in a minute. Go on.
okay, so that's cool and all. However, I think that because you play PC and because you say the things you say and you do play PC, you're being a little irrational. And because there's I can't put my finger on what would be deemed as acceptable. And what I'm getting at is that, okay, so we look at the 360, the PS3, and the Wii, and we discuss how this game on the we'll say Half-Life 2 on
Oh, please don't say OG Xbox 180.
no,
Oh,
I was
phew,
gonna
that's
say
a legendarily bad port.
no, I'll just say Bayonetta 3 on no Bayonetta on PS3,
360.
the PS3.
Oh God. Okay.
Okay, so um, we can say, yeah, that's hardware. That's also poor optimization. Not that they didn't try, but obviously, if they spent more time with it, it would get better. But it's not their job to hold on to a game and develop it forever just to put it on a platform that's difficult to build. So then Q would say, it's, I don't care if it's a technical achievement, I care about the end product. But then I constantly have to think, like, but the product also plays a role in it. And if a product plays a role in it, and I think it's unfair when you say that when you're a PC gamer because you have tens of thousands of options. You can build a PC to be however this, however that, old PC parts, new PC parts, that second gen i5, but with an external GPU running GTA at 1080, 60 target. You can do all these things, but and, but you can't just definitively point and say this is no good or this is good and this is good because you have all the elements of swapping out components, and then when you get the components you can mess with the settings, whereas on the console I think it's different. I think if you and I or I guess I'm having a conversation on consoles. I never talk about PC because I can't. Um, but you could. But I think if you had entered all these conversations that you had with me, but never talk about PC, then you and I would have a very different yet the same conversation at the same time because uh, these these machines always have these things inside them every time. Uh,
Yeah,
whereas your
it's like what I
PC
was
is,
saying earlier with the
go ahead.
optimization. And they know it's exactly that specific piece of hardware every single time.
And that's why I think it is something worthy to just salute to. And you go, no, the game is poorly optimized. I'm like, but they. Okay, so you're talking about poorly optimized games. I would probably get on that. I would most likely be on your side when it comes to that. But again, with like the Xenoblade on the 3DS, I think it's a technical marvel, and I think it's just like mwah, like spaghettis. I gotta play it. I gotta play it. It wasn't made for no reason, and it wasn't made by no some idiot. Like geniuses, people that understand games and have been in the gaming industry, who have sat down at round tables with some of the most legendary members in the gaming community, made this game for this platform. Somebody wants it, and I'm one of them. But so how do you? Let me say this though. How do you feel? Or let me ask this. I know the answer to one of the questions. I'm asking two questions that are literally paired up.
Okay.
I know the answer to one, but for the sake of it all, just feel free to answer. How do you feel about games that are, um, you know, being put on the platform and performing terribly? And then how do you feel about a game that's put on a platform where it shouldn't run it? It's a potato basically, but the game is all there. There's nothing missing, yet it runs. It runs as it should. So how do you feel about the scenario or the situation where it's being put on a platform and it comes out like shit, but then you do see a game get put on a platform that you expected to run like shit. I'm sure when you first heard of it, but it doesn't. So like, do you think, all right, this is one of those moments where Foods he's gonna get onto me because although it is put on
It's still on there is the main thing.
it's still on there. And you know what? And you yourself mentioned when you were playing Borderlands. See, this is why I held this in my head this whole conversation, because when you mentioned Borderlands and you said, "Well, this isn't there, and this is missing, and this is missing," I'm telling you, Xenoblade is all there.
Now,
So
when I say it's when I say stuff was missing from Borderlands, it was I guess you could call it extra stuff. All the gameplay was still there. It was all still exactly the same. It was all extra effects, extra simulations and stuff as well. But at the end of the day, it didn't affect the core gameplay. That was just held back by the frame rating and controller. But yeah, there is a little bit of a difference in that. It's not like it was removing certain mechanics or anything like that because the CPU couldn't handle it.
yeah.
The gameplay was all still 100% there. The content was all still 100% there. It was graphical stuff and extra bells and whistles, if you will. But to answer your two questions, I can answer them with the one answer for both questions, basically. It's a waste of fucking time, and I completely disregard it, and I'm not impressed with it or care about it in any way, shape, or form. I don't give a shit that The Witcher is on the Switch. It looks like a PS2 game. It's a waste of time. I don't care that Doom
It
2016 managed to be ported over there as well. It runs in the mid 20 FPS at 600p. They recommend that you turn down the difficulty to get less enemies, to get less frame drops. It has special textures beyond the lowest of low existing quality settings, just because they can. To quote Jeff Goldblum, your scientists were so preoccupied to wonder if they could, they didn't think if they should. I think it's completely wordless, completely pointless, and I shit on it, and I shit on people who buy that copy of the game when they have an option to buy a different one. And if they don't have the option to buy a different one, choose a better fucking console.
Well, I disagree, but I'm saying when you're talking because I'm backing you up in what you're saying. But I still disagree in that. Like, I celebrate gaming. I want it to be everywhere. If you want to put Doom on the on the OLED strip that is on the on the
On
Mac,
the Mac.
then do it. I'm probably not gonna play it. I promise you. But yeah, do it. If you want to put Skyrim on a calculator, which somebody has done, do it. Like I celebrate it. I want that. I love seeing in the seventh generation. I love seeing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 on PS3, and I love seeing it on the 360, and I love seeing it on the Wii because to me it's a celebration. Like, hey, we're all getting in on this, no matter what side of the party lines we're on, and yeah, we bitch at each other about these lines, and the PS3 sucks, no Xbox sucks.
I got a real good one for you. Remember that I think it was last year or maybe the year before when they had the Skyrim and they shown like there was the Alexa version of Skyrim and all that stuff as well. Do you remember when they announced all that?
Yeah.
Yeah, the funny thing about that is, right, is when I live streamed that as like a reaction thing when they were announcing all the Bethesda stuff. When I was making that, I put in something like Skyrim Dishwasher Edition. But before I did, I was just back from holidays like 2 weeks prior, and I was looking at all these like smart fridges and stuff like that in an electronics store in Germany when I was on holidays, and I typed it out. I was like, okay, I should. Are you dying? I typed it out. I was like, okay, I should put in Skyrim Smart Fridge Edition. And then I was like, no, I'll put it on something even more ludicrous. And then they show off, as a joke in it, they have the fucking, the fridge edition. Like, why didn't I put that in? I should rage and I should have done it. But I was so close. I was so devastated that I did that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it back a little bit because we're still all over the place, which is so much fun. But we have basically two more topics to talk about here. One of them is a proper topic one of them will be over in like 1 minute, but one of them is a proper topic that we're going to finish on, and the other one is just something quickly that you brought up in about probably half an hour ago at this point.
But that I'm constantly schooling you, but we don't have to talk about
I
it.
wouldn't. I mean, it's not opposite day. Well, actually, maybe it's still. You're in the US. Maybe it's still opposite day back there. But here it is. It's we live in the real world here, so we hit with facts,
Don't worry,
logic, and high frame rates.
you're still undeniably a loser in this day. So
get the hell
so
out of here.
both in the future and the past.
Listen. Go play your Wii U with your same 7 people in the same game, and
Hey, oh,
you can tell them all about that.
I just want to say before you move on to the next topic that yesterday I was playing Watch Dogs on the Wii U, and I
You're
thought
playing what?
about Q just because it's like you can't like not put you can't not brush your teeth when you start your day. So it's like you can't not play a Wii U title and think about Q. So I'm playing
That's
Watch
true.
Dogs, and I go to myself, no joke. This was what was said in my mind. I said, "Man, but it doesn't look that good. I bet you if I put it." I bet you if I connect it to the CRT TV, this shit will look beautiful.
I wouldn't go
But
that far.
and after I thought that, like I stayed right there, holding the gamepad, laying in the bed, and I thought to myself as I was playing it, I said, well, "This game is pretty damn good." So like, I'm gonna play it. So that's my point. Like, it's good. It's good. I don't know why I got okay. Aside from the resolution gate from Ubisoft, I don't get why this game didn't get all the love because I think it's pretty. I think it's pretty fun.
Wait,
And
it wasn't specifically resolution gate. It was the overall downgrade, and not to mention that the game itself felt pretty lackluster.
I think it's refreshing that their version of what Grand Theft Auto esque life would be the way that it is that they represented it. To me, they represented it more cinematically, and I love
Is that
my
just because you had a
cinematics.
low frame rate?
No,
No, I know what you
no,
mean when
no,
you say
no,
cinematic,
no.
but I
But
couldn't
like
help
for
it. Yeah,
so
the way
like
they
the cin.
portray everything, the story,
Yeah.
the gameplay, the
Yes.
camera.
Yes.
Yeah, I get
You
you. You're
know,
right.
what's his name? Aiden. Walking up into a back lot and he's covered up, and then he's like he's somewhat pacing just a little bit, but enough depth away from someone else, getting a feel for someone, and that he knows that he has a sister that he's looking after, but he wants to make some time to keep her in his life. So he's trying to do this job and then quickly get back and find out what what crazy man keeps calling his sister. But you don't get that in GTA. GTA is like crazy people meet up, and then they're like, "Yep, so we need the money."
So basically,
That's
what you're trying to say is that Watch Dogs is GTA directed by Zack Snyder. Gotcha.
no, it's directed by fuck. Oh man, this is a good challenge. Um, you know what? Let me just open my closet here because I'll see a list. I have an ass ton of movies in here, and then I can be like, oh shit, this guy right
You
here.
come out with like some really obscure thing that I've never heard of. Oh yeah, he's like this crazy underground filmmaker made this thing. It's like, yeah, I've probably never heard of that. It was, oh, you sure? It was really really popular in the basement of that McDonald's back in '97. I'm like, yeah, I've never. Get out of here.
I'll say, whoever directed Nightcrawler could do it.
Nightcrawler, the Jake Gyllenhaal film.
Yeah, I'm looking at the director right now. I'm looking for it.
Google tells me it's Dan Gilroy.
So this Dan Gilroy could pull something off like that. It's dark, meaning on corners and making shady deals. Like it's a different taste. Whereas if in the film world, Grand Theft Auto for sure would be done by the team that has made Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz.
Oh, it's not that over the top. Come on.
Well, Grand Theft
GTA
Auto,
is more of a dark comedy almost. Not a dark
GTA
black
is
comedy. Black comedy.
GTA is bro. It is. I've always been.
Saints Row is Hot Fuzz.
I would say that, yeah, and I
Yeah.
would say Shaun of the Dead would and should be GTA.
Oh, no, well, I meant that kind of film, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, the same directors, the same actors that, I meant his kind of style and all that. That would be Saints Row versus GTA. Do you know what would be GTA actually? Something I just watched fairly recently. Guy Ritchie, Snatch. That
Never
has.
seen it.
Oh, you really should. It's an English gangster film from the year 2000, and it's got a serious gangster vibe as well. But it has the GTA style of comedy. You know, I never actually realized it until right now in this conversation that it just came up. But it is very, very similar with that kind of comedy and all in it too. If when you pick up GTA, most people don't pick it up as a comedy game, but there's definitely dark comedy aspects in there. So it's very similar to that. But just moving away from that because we'll spend another fucking like 20 minutes on it or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We'll go back to the last two parts. So you brought up earlier that at the end of the day is since we're looking at the end, well, I'm looking at the end product if it's any good or whatnot, and you're looking at it if the game is fun, which you could argue are two sides of the same coin. Not even, they're both different versions of saying the same thing. I would say that yes, that is true to an extent. However, that doesn't mean I have to be happy with a very low quality presentation of a good game. Like, for example, I'm just trying to think of a good example. Let's just go with Zelda Breath of the Wild. So when you look at Breath of the Wild on the Switch, it runs almost 30 frames per second we'll just call it all the time, or most of the time anyway. There are still technical problems. It is a low resolution game. Is it enjoyable? Was it enjoyable for the 65-ish hours I put into it? Yeah, I'd say about 40 or 50, and then it just kind of went going through the motions. But yeah, I really enjoyed the 40-ish hours beforehand. I'm not going to get into the whole problems about how there's no story or blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. The point is that it's still a fairly low-quality technical experience. Do I have to settle for that? Yes. Compared to the Wii U version and all as well, I was playing the best version of it available. But that's still not saying much. I don't have to be satisfied with a 30 FPS version. I don't... What are you doing?
I'm just opening up some food.
Oh. I don't have to be happy with a 30 FPS version. I don't have to be happy with an extremely low quality texture version, low quality assets, low quality effects, low quality everything. I would much prefer something bigger, something better, and have a lot more everything. And that's the same reason why I play all my multiplats on PC. I can play a game. I can play, I don't know, one of your favorite games. I could play Arkham Knight on Xbox One. It would be 30 frames per second with low quality everything. I don't know what resolution it runs at. It's probably not 1080p. Or I can play it on PC at high resolution, native 1440p, 90 FPS, because for some reason that game has a hard cap of 90 FPS, and max quality everything. So yeah, you can play another game. I mean, hell, I'm playing Animal Crossing. I put a shitload of time into it since it launched a few weeks ago. Is it a lower quality game? Absolutely, at least from a technical and visual side of it. I mean, hell, it's the first console Animal Crossing game that has been cut in half on frame rate. I put hundreds, if not thousands of hours into the GameCube version, which was 60 FPS. I put hundreds, if not thousands of hours into the Wii version, which was 60 FPS. I booted this up straight away, it's 30 frames per second. I'm still enjoying the game. Animal Crossing is thankfully not a super important one in the sense that you need 60 FPS because it's a big action game or anything like that. But, like a turn-based game, Persona 5, a game I love, Fire Emblem, another great game. When you look at those games, they are 30 FPS or below, and because it doesn't affect the gameplay, it's more of an almost, I won't say an aesthetic choice, but it would make it better. It would make it more visually appealing at the same time. But the gameplay, which isn't affected by the frame rate, would be the same. That's why Animal Crossing is still technically a little bit of a lower game, a lower quality game in that way, but I would love to have it at 60 FPS again. I would love to have it at 4K. I would love to have it whatever. But since I'm stuck playing this version of the game, I have to. The Final Fantasy VII Remake is another great example of this. Hopefully I'll have it tomorrow morning or in about 6 hours because it's currently 4 a.m. But I have two choices. I can play Final Fantasy VII Remake on the PS4, or I can wait for a year and then get the superior PC version, which I will get anyway, but I can't wait to play that game in the meantime. So that's a more expanded answer of that, if you will.
I just think we have different definitions of what low quality is. I think something
Probably.
low quality is something that takes away from the experience, something that messes with the mechanics or
Well,
hinders.
that would be a low frame rate in most console games then, because 30 FPS is not a smooth frame rate. Judders and all over the place, especially when turning or trying to aim finally. I consider 30 FPS a frame rate problem. 100% across the board. In any game that requires like proper timed and motion inputs and all, let's just say Watch Dogs, for example, because you brought that up earlier. 30 FPS is a technical problem in that to me. That is a frame rate problem, if you ask me. But that's a whole other conversation we could get into for a whole other different day. We'll round it out. I'll go on.
I was just going to say the only reason I brought that up is because the way you spoke about Xenoblade on the 3DS, you say low quality. That I see nothing low quality about it. It did Xenoblade on the 3DS, and it did it the way it needed to do it to make sure all of the game is there, and audio and cinematic or cutscenes and or real time.
But my point is it's a quarter of the resolution of the other version of the game.
Yeah, but it was never aiming to reach that.
Yeah, but
so
that's where we come back to our whole thing earlier. You're looking at the fact that the whole thing is on there. I'm looking at the quality, if you will, of the end product. It's lower quality in basically every way. I mean, lower resolution is a measurable metric for lower quality. Lower visual settings, again, a metric for lower quality. Lower resolution, lower frame rate, etc. Measurable metrics for lower quality. But that's a whole other story. We'll move away from that just because we'll keep going back and forth on it. But
listen, boys and girls, look.
he's going to get bad with this one because he's gonna bait me into it, and then I'm just gonna fucking destroy him. And we've already seen that Watch Dogs video where my trash is beyond his wildest dreams of treasure.
I'm gonna do a Watch Dogs review, all WiiU, and you're gonna be blown away.
I'll be blown away because it'll be in standard definition in 2020.
You're fired. So here's the thing: he's talking about it's putting it on that small screen, but he's bothered. The whole thing's there, but he put it in a smaller screen, so therefore it's complete ass. So what he's saying is that this cheeseburger put in this container designed to hold the cheeseburger is impressive. But when I say, you know what, get me that cheeseburger, I'm going to fit it into this tiny Ziploc bag that's designed for, let's just say, like a little hot dog packets or Lunchables, the little crackers. So I do my wizardry and actually fit that burger in there. Now, wouldn't that person think, oh, damn, awesome, I got to eat a burger. They didn't go, I ate a burger from a small Ziploc bag. This is horse shit. The end result is you had that burger.
No. You in your case, you had that burger that was not altered in any way, shape, or form. It would be the equivalent of stuffing that same burger down into something that is a box that is 1/4 the size. You would probably have to like cut the burger in half in order to get it to fit in that box, or compress
No,
it,
no, because that
or
would be half
compress.
of a burger.
Okay, get the full burger, compress it into like some tight little meatball burger mesh bullshit just to get it to fit in the box. I feel
And
that's a
then
more apt comparison.
and
It's
then
not
somebody
going to be the
goes,
same thing.
"Damn, boy, this burger's delicious."
No,
You
they're not.
know?
They're gonna open up like, son, what the fuck did you do to my burger? It's like a fucking ball in this bitch. But anywho, we'll round it back out to the final proper topic and the final proper point we have here. So we'll bring this back to the Xbox One X, the Xbox, and the PS5. Well, I guess it would be just the Xbox, because we were talking about that one. So you were wondering how you're getting a 6 teraflop machine for $300, being the Xbox One X, and how they're asking what you suspect will be $600. Actually, that's another one we'll bring up in a minute, for a 12 teraflop machine. And how are you getting 6 teraflops with a Jaguar if it sucks ass? So here's a little bit of a misconception when it comes to teraflops and all like that. When you're measuring teraflops, yes, it comes from the power of the CPU, the capabilities and the performance of the CPU, as well as the capabilities and performance of the GPU. However, it is not an average of the two. It's a combination, an end result of the two. So for example, if your CPU is 1 teraflop and your GPU is 5 teraflops, that means you have 6 teraflops. It's not 6 divided by 2 because of 2 parts. So one of them could, in theory, be 100 gigaflops. Your CPU could be 100 gigaflops, and your GPU could be 5.9 teraflops, and that would add up to your 6. So now, granted, I think we talked about this last time as well. Remember how I was saying that not all teraflops are equal. So what is a 5 teraflop NVIDIA GPU is not the same as a 5 teraflop AMD GPU, is not the same as a 5 teraflop custom made, custom designed console version of a GPU. So that's why there's a big difference in there too. Especially when you look at the price of, so you're saying that Xbox One X is $300 now in the US, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to look up right now in my one, Xbox One X. This is in GameStop Ireland. Are they even selling Xbox One X? They have Xbox Series X there. Is Xbox One really so dead that they're not even selling the hard? No, there is. It's in a separate section. So, consoles. Xbox. Wow. They don't even have Xbox One X on their website anymore. Okay.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, they have Xbox One S in 3 different bundles and Xbox Series X. But anyway, okay, so we'll just work off your $300 assumption price. So naturally, as time goes by, all this older stuff, it becomes cheaper to make and all as well. They move on to newer high-end parts and all, like we'll see in the new Xbox. And the older stuff can be made cheaper and cheaper and cheaper as it becomes, because no one is going to have a demand for that stuff anymore. So they have huge stockpiles of it left over. They have to reduce the price in order to sell them. Microsoft buys them in cheaper, pass that along. Or of course, there's always the possibility that Microsoft is eating a loss on the consoles just to get the boxes into the home, make up the money on digital purchases, subscriptions, microtransactions, Xbox Live Gold, Game Pass Ultimate, stuff like that. And we'll break this next one into 2 parts. Okay, so you reckon that, yeah, how are they going to ask you for $600 for a 12 teraflop machine? This goes back into pretty much what we said a second ago. With technology as it moves forward, let's just say let's say you have a $100 CPU in 2013, and that's a Jaguar, and that gets you 1 teraflop. The same $100 might buy you in the year 2020. $100 will buy you a CPU that gives you 4 teraflop. because of all the technological advances, the architecture changes, the new advancements and all as well in CPU, hardware, architecture, yada yada yada, manufacturing process, hell, even down to stuff like the size of the CPU, the nanometer technology in it. That makes stuff more power efficient, more powerful and all as well, and that can have an impact on it. So, $100 7 years ago gets you 1 teraflop, whereas $100 now gets you 4 teraflops. And it's the same way when you look at the rest of it. If when you look, there might be another, let's say, $500, because it could potentially be $600 altogether. The rest of that money goes on a GPU. So if you had spent that money in 20, when did the Xbox One X launch? Was it 2017?
Yeah.
So in 2017, that would get you a 5 teraflop GPU. And now, because of improvements, architecture, new architecture like Navi and stuff like that, and what even the basic stuff can do as standard and all now, in 2020, that same money on the GPU now gets you, what were they saying, 12 teraflops. So now that gets you an 8 teraflop GPU. And of course, because all teraflops are not created equal, it's much better in every way. It now has stuff that was high end and teraflop heavy, if you will. I hate to say teraflop heavy because it's not a proper metric. Well, I mean, I guess it is and it isn't. But yeah, something that would be teraflop heavy, if you will, in 2017 or on hardware from 2017 is now a basic feature that can be done with 1% performance hit in 2020 on the new hardware and stuff. So that's why you can see why we should be able to see such a big improvement on the new consoles and the new stuff and the new hardware because of what's in them for a relatively the same price, if that makes sense.
Sorry, I was muted. My bad. Yeah, it does make sense. I mean, what it comes down to it is, we got it. We got the end result. I mean, we're getting 6K. Oh, I was gonna say 6K. We're getting 4K gaming on a Jaguar.
There's heavy asterisks with that.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, but
sometimes.
But again,
you're
sacrificing so much from the game design and simulation point of view just to get the pure pixel count. And again, you're getting it in, with the exception of some very basic games like, say, Halo 5 or the Master Chief Collection. You're getting 20 FPS. You're getting 25 FPS. That's the trade-off. I don't consider that worth it, and I don't see how anyone can. But again, that's how I look at it all.
Hey, isn't Halo 4 Master Chief Collection 4K native 60?
Well, I assume that the whole collection was.
Yeah. I think the whole collection is, except for Halo 2. The remaster isn't. The standard.
Yeah, the old, not the anniversary version, but
yeah, not the anniversary version.
Yeah,
that one's running, I think, like at 1300p, something like that.
That wouldn't surprise me, considering that was in on the base console. That was the only one that wasn't running at 1080p. But yeah, I mean it's console, so I can't wait to play that game at a true native resolution when it comes out on PC very, very soon. Because
I'm glad.
So far, Halo Reach and Combat Evolved on PC are absolutely glorious. You did it earlier with your, kissing the fingers and whatnot. Mwah. It's sublime. I used to work with a French guy. He used to do that all the time, unironically, just as part of regular conversation, and it was always funny to me. But since it came up in a little bit of it, then we'll put in like a little bonus topic as well. Price-wise, Xbox, PlayStation 5. What do you reckon? And why?
PlayStation 5 will be $500, and it'll be an opportunity for them to get a little bit.
Just before you go any further, is this taken into consideration? Have you heard the potential manufacturer cost of the PlayStation 5 from Sony?
Yes.
So $450, by the way, if anyone else out there hasn't heard it.
What I've heard is 450, but they'd be selling it for 479.
Yeah, yeah.
I
It's 450 just for the hardware, so it's not including packaging, shipping, retailer cuts, any of that stuff. It allegedly it costs Sony $450 just to manufacture one of the PlayStation 5 units in the factory in China. To get it shipped out, to get it packaged, that's all extra.
um I think that they'll sell it for 500. It's an opportunity to use their name for gimmicks. They could sell PS4 for $400, and they could sell PS5 for $500.
Question
And
for you, since you brought that up: how much is a PS4 and a PS4 Pro in the US right now?
um, I think the PS4 Pro is $299, which is
Oh,
kind of
so
silly.
when you said $400, you meant at launch.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, okay.
absolutely. At launch, like follow suit in that sense. It makes sense for parents to understand the price. It makes sense for the gamers that aren't so involved in the Twitter world and don't know that people fight over these kind of things. It makes sense for them. Um, you will be able to see the money that they're asking for, because you could always see the money that they're requesting based off of the design, because it's so new. It's when it's become old and you've seen it a million times. You go, these bitches, they're not getting my $500. There's no way. They're not getting another one. And
Well,
then they drop the price.
it's not just that as well. I mean, think about it. The think of the quality of a game and whatnot as well. In 2020, it will be new, it will be fancy, it will be shiny to most console gamers. And then in 2025, when you're still buying a PS5, those games they're not as new, as fancy, as shiny as they once were compared in 2020 to the old one. I mean, hell, remember the solid state drive meme I sent you? The Back to the Future one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, where he was
it's
like,
like that. It's like that.
oh, I mean, tell the viewers though, like, what was the meme?
Oh, so basically, for actually, you know what I'll do, right? I'll put it up on screen. So when I edit this video and put some actual footage and all to it as well, you will see this meme right here as well. But yeah, it's good Back to the Future PC gaming master race memes.
All right, man. It's about that time I go, not just because, like, stuff, but
Oh,
I'm
well, I just want to bounce one more thing off you just before you go, okay? So you reckon 500 for the PS5, 600 for the Xbox?
yes.
Okay, I'm gonna go a little bit different. Technically, the Xbox should be more expensive because it is higher end hardware and higher end parts and all that too. But I do think, because of Microsoft getting absolutely slaughtered in the Xbox One era, especially with the price and Connect and the underpowered hardware and all, I think what Microsoft are going to do is I think they might launch it for 450, and take the loss to get as many boxes into the homes as possible. There is, for all we know, there's a potential for them to maybe even launch it at 400 or 430. I expect it for maybe 450. I don't think Sony will go any lower than 450. We all know that one company is probably waiting for the other to tip their hand on price first and then adjust accordingly. But I reckon the PS5 could sell for 500 but will probably sell for 450. I think Microsoft will undercut them in order to make up the money, recoup their losses, because Microsoft have the money. They can eat all that money loss all day on hardware. They make their money back on licensing, games licensing, digital sales, even a cut of physical sales through licensing, microtransactions, subscription services, Xbox Live, Game Pass Ultimate. They're going to try to get as many boxes into the home as cheap as possible and make their money back on all of that other stuff, if you ask me. While the prices may be up in the air and all, and we don't know which one is which just yet, I do reckon that the Xbox will come in slightly lower than the PlayStation.
I think that we're forgetting that there is another SKU. So I think Xbox
I
wants.
don't consider the whole Lockhart potential, like 4 or 6 teraflop, whatever it is, Xbox Series S or whatever. I don't talk about that in any way, shape, or form because we don't know anything about it yet. It
From
might
what
not
we,
even exist.
I say we get the $600 Xbox Series X, and then we will get a $200 Lockhart or 250.
Do you think it will be the streaming only version, or do you think it will still be a locally hardware based render console?
Well, from my sources, they say it's a 4 teraflop machine. So I don't think it's just streaming.
Okay, well, I don't listen to any of that stuff at all, because there's just so much of it out there. I just completely ignore it. I'll come across that bridge when it comes out and when it's announced and when it's launched and whatnot too.
There's only one feature I care about is I want to be able to use my Connect.
Oh yeah, you're shit out of luck then, boyo.
It better work.
No, you're fucked. You are.
So how am I gonna do my Xbox Fitness?
You are 100% fucked. I don't even expect that USB adapter to work on Xbox Series. Haven't they already said that it's not going to be supported? I'm pretty sure I saw it the other day that it's not going to be supported.
It's supported on Xbox One X.
Yeah, so on that. Hang on, let me see.
Why wouldn't it?
Xbox Series X Connect. I could have sworn I saw this just the other day. Connect on Series X. Here we go. Oh, okay. It says there's no certain info about it just yet. Okay, so to me, I don't think it will. I don't think they'll even support it, but that's just my guess.
I hope they do, man. To me, it's just all about options.
Possibly. But I'll ask you one more brief question. It's going to be pretty much a yes or no answer. In these massive, crazy, uncertain times at the moment when the COVID-19 is ravaging everyone and potentially bringing people back as zombies, as a zombie apocalypse, Xbox Series X, launch date, day one, yay or nay? I realize that's a big ask because, money and uncertainty and whatnot too. But
yeah, I mean, even if that weren't the case, it's just hard for me to want to be part of the group of people that buy this when you have a console that's going to get all of those games that they have there, and then it's literally just 100% more powerful.
For the record, people, he's talking about the Xbox One X, not the PlayStation 5.
It's two times as powerful. That's it. It's
2 times as powerful on paper. Remember, not all teraflops are created equal. If it was a 12 teraflop Jaguar, and I can't even remember what GPU architecture they're using in that. If it was a 12 teraflop version of whatever was in there, I would agree with you. But you will see more than double the difference. I'm doing air quotes here, but you'll see more than double the difference for the Xbox. At least I hope. I hope they will. Based on what I understand as a PC guy from knowing a Ryzen chip versus a Jaguar and versus a Navi GPU versus what they had in 2012, 2013, you will see more than what you consider a double increase.
The biggest increase we've seen was the 7th generation, and I was looking forward to an increase just like that the next coming generation, and then we didn't. I was looking for 8 times leap from the 360 to Xbox One. I believe what we got was 5.
It doesn't even feel like it.
Hold on, let me think. Hold on. 3, 1, 9, 4. No, we got 4 times. But I remember reading early when they were talking about using Jaguar and being 8 times as more powerful as that 360. I was like, woohoo!
Yeah, that's the kind of numbers and stuff they're throwing around. Like, they're just using clock speeds and they're just using like teraflop counts and all as well at the moment to say, yeah, we're twice as powerful, we're 100% as powerful. But again, looking at the actual hardware and what it is, you're gonna see more than what you would probably consider at double the power. Trust me on that one.
Okay, I trust you.
As everyone should. As everyone should.
It's just, I'm not gonna buy it day one. I already have it. I feel like I already have it. If I want to, I can just buy that controller. I'll buy a robot white controller, the one that they have with the Xbox Series X, and just use it on my console, which is basically the same thing. They said they're not even changing the UI at first.
Yeah,
It's the same thing.
that's very disheartening to me, especially considering that the Xbox UI is terrible.
I like the tiles, man. I liked the first. I liked the very first UI.
Yes, 100%. I completely agree with you on that one. The very first launch one they used, where they had like the big game tile, what was in the disk drive, in like the top center, and everything else was small around it. And then you could like scroll left to your, scroll to the right to get to your store, scroll to your left to get to your settings and other pins and stuff. That was the best and only good Xbox One dashboard at the time. Everything else has been crap. Granted, the more recent one they pushed out like a week or two ago is a slight improvement over the version that they had already. But the last couple of ones that they used that were all very, very similar to each other are so bad. I don't know what they're doing. Xbox 360 Blades were the best. The launch day Xbox One UI was the best. And no, you know what? I'm going to have to stop because I'm going to go on a rant with all the other problems and missing features and all that were there or weren't there on day one. But the base UI for the Xbox One, the best one was the original launch one. End of story.
I think the best UI for the Xbox 360 was the
The first one with the party chat is what you're going to
the
say.
I forget what they call it.
The Metro.
It's when it's almost Metro. I don't think they do call it Metro.
Okay, yeah, I know the one you're talking about. So,
but it's
the one they have now is it's the tiled one, but it's like
which
the
I like.
360 version of the Metro one. I thought there was a better one. Remember, they used to have the blades, and then they moved over to something that was similar to Metro when they first added in Party Chat. That was probably a better one, but I think the current Xbox 360 Metro one is a little shit.
Was it where there were like they're not squares because the edges were ovaled out?
Yeah, and they did be like at an angle and stuff as well. But now
it
feels
you would flip through them, and then the other tiles would slowly roll all the way to the right of the screen.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's my favorite.
That was a really good one. I think I prefer the tiles, the blades slightly more though. It was more functional for the features of the console at the time.
To me, it was like you said. It was more functional. I loved having my friend section and my media section, and I'll never forget how good it felt every time to click on the tile that said HD DVD. Oh, felt so good. It felt like, we're getting support. And then, as you all know, they shoved it down in the corner. You could still use HD DVD on the 360, but they shoved it far in the back of the media. So.
Oh yeah, I remember. The last time I used it was maybe about 3 or 4 years ago. I remember I had to get my 360 down just to use it to watch a film. But yeah, it still does work. Now you just have to. It's the little small tile in the I think it's bottom right corner of the. Like they've got the big tiles in the center, and there's a couple of small ones on the side. But it's a bit of a pain. Anyway, we're dragging this out a little bit too much with all this nostalgia. But you know how it is with us. We just rant and rant.
It comes easy, man. It comes easy to us.
Exactly. You're talking about all this old stuff. The nostalgia just
because
flows and everything
we
goes.
have something to say, whereas all these other people, I mean, they have nothing interesting to say, intellectual, and they talk about their dick size.
But my fanboy consoles, man, 12 teraflops confirmed. PlayStation 5 is dead, yo. Yoshida,
he tweeted me.
Oh, I will say this though, right? Just single last thing as well. Who do you think is going to win next generation, Microsoft or Sony? Don't say Nintendo. It's only between Microsoft and Sony.
It's gonna be Nintendo.
You're dead to me.
Because hey, hear me out. Microsoft and Nintendo are slowly they, they're committing the act of suicide slowly. They're getting to a point where they know that innovation will be lesser and lesser and lesser. So instead of taking, okay,
Well, I assume you
before,
mean
hold on, hold
Microsoft
on.
and Sony, yeah?
Hear me out. So yes,
Yeah.
Microsoft,
Yeah,
Sony.
you said
So
Microsoft and Nintendo, sorry.
there was a point where they could go the normal traditional route, and we're talking about the multiple folds and bits. And I'm sorry if I sound weird. I have my mouth guard on. But they wanted to go beyond just increasing bits and provide different experiences that is unique to their platform. So you have the PlayStation using discs, and you have the N64 using cartridges, and rumble packs, and extra RAM, and wasn't there a controller that was a banana? Just like they go out their way to create a different experience, but that they all knew that they wanted to. It's kind of like when you compare me to a Mexican. I want to not be a Mexican, but you call me that. So I
Well,
go. I
to,
need a.
to to be fair, I couldn't remember that you were Puerto Rican. I knew you were Hispanic of some
I
type, but I
hope this
couldn't
makes it.
remember.
I hope this part makes it into your podcast, so people will be like, "Did you do that? Disgusting."
If anyone wants to
Uh,
see where I did that, go back and watch the final stream, a final episode of Life is Strange 2, Part 5, I believe it is. I think it was that one.
Uh, you want to differentiate yourself, and so consoles they went out and they did that immediately. You got your, like I said, PS1, your N64. They differentiated themselves. The Dreamcast, big time, was screaming, "I am different. Look at me, hear me roar." Then you hear a PlayStation 2, built-in DVD player, sleek and sexy looking. That we didn't see that in the game consoles biz. It was being both. It was saying, "I am your entertainment center," and where you play games. And then out of nowhere, Xbox is like, I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna bring the thing that you guys are afraid of. That's on the other side of that fence. It's it's on the other side of the fence for a reason, but I want to see how you guys do if that came over here. They brought in an x86 and a hard drive and storage that you can take and whatever, and then installed music. Like they brought to them what they were afraid of, and uh, so he was big change because he was big change architecturally all over and with feature set. Then you got, what is it, GameCube. Uh, GameCube was vastly different due to the controller, due to the player that you could attach at the bottom, due to that you can link your Game Boy Advance systems to the GameCube, due to that you could get the Panasonic Q version where it has a DVD player in there as
The,
well.
the, the
Due to
best version, by the way.
Yeah, I wish I had it. Um, so this is why we kept doing what we were doing, because we wanted. It's all about the experience. That's all that it's about. And and my the 360 and the PS3, they wanted to be different still, and still could figure out ways how to encourage the development of video games on their platform and create this economy and have it established. Like the economy of it existed, but it wasn't established, and they figured it out. So they go with the next one. Look at Xbox One, wanted to be a more mature console looking, where it doesn't grab too much attention. I liked how that looked. However, I don't like what type of a future that creates, because now, look at your next console. Uh, it blends in more and it doesn't scream attention. I think they're sexy as fuck. They look great, but they're just conforming. It's this conformity of DNA. And then you have your PlayStation 4, which is doing the same thing. They're conforming. There's nothing. you can't tell me that the VR is the new experience that it could offer that's different, because that's been done before. It's been done poorly, and it's then been done good at arcades, but people still don't care for it. It's not a new experience, different way to play. Um, it's just none of that. So I think that they will lose out. And now, when I say lose out, I think they'll lose out into. I think every time they do that, they lose out on having another generation. So, like, let's say there's 10 generations of consoles. Every time you come out with a console that conforms and does nothing special to add to the experience, now you have nine console generations, and you go, no, but we're in the. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you feel like it's just
let me say 20. Let me
maybe
say
an
20.
evolution of the same thing rather than a
Yeah.
complete revolution. Yeah. Like
Exactly.
one step up. Yeah, I get it.
And then, so you go, now you deduct one. It's kind of like a cat losing a life. You continue, but you also lose. And so with the Switch, or I'm sorry, with Nintendo, I think even if they lose in comparison to sales, every one of those generations, Nintendo still wins, because there will be a generation that comes where Microsoft is not making the Xbox anymore, and PlayStation and Sony is not making the PlayStation anymore, and it'll just be Nintendo. And because they did it every time. They did it every time.
Well, there you have it, everyone. Noted Wii U Nintendo fanboy reckons that Nintendo will be the only company left in the entire world after every other possible company. Walmart shuts down, food shuts down, Nintendo keeps
the
going.
virus, man.
Everything will shut down except
That's the
for
virus.
Nintendo.
You're getting confused.
24 years from now, when consoles are even more irrelevant than they already are, Nintendo will be the only one.
It's going to be Nintendo.
PC will be gone. Water factories will. Water factories, what am I talking about? I got a water bottle in my hand. Places that create bottled water, phones, electricity, everything will be gone, but Nintendo will live on.
It will be in the next 6 console generations. It'll just be one of those generations. At some point, we'll get to it just being smartphones and tablets, Nintendo and Stadia. That's it.
No, get out here! Okay, you know what? No, gonna relax.
Look at him. His blood pressure. Hey, because they'll finally have 16, 20 years to figure out why their service sucks.
Yeah, and they'll still suck ass in 16 to 20 years. But anyway, that is it. We have somehow turned what was planned to be 15 to 20 minute video to be...
That's what he said to me, that bitch.
2 hours long, because that's what we do. He's just gonna go crawling back to his like little crappy 1164 by whatever it is Wii U, playing Watch Dogs as he falls asleep.
A CRT with scan lines.
Clutching his Wii U gamepad. It's like, it's okay, even if Q doesn't love you, I do. But it's just laughable. Having said that, the Wii U has a few good games. I did enjoy playing them. It was a shame that they were trapped to the Wii U, and I would have preferred to play a better version of them. But anyway, that's it, everybody. Hopefully you stuck around for our little rambling as we do. As promised, and just as a reminder, if for some reason you do like Food's strange obsession with the Wii U and, well, all types of
it's
weird,
just my
crazy
train of thought.
Nintendo stuff.
My thought.
If you want to hear any more of his ramblings and rantings and whatnot, there will be a link in the comment section below. Anyway, well, that's it. We done, we out, and, well, Food, I'll let you say your little goodbye before we bounce on out.
That's actually awesome. I was gonna ask if I can do the outro, because I don't get to do them anymore.
Go for it. Do whatever outro you want. You don't even have to do your version of my one. Just do whatever version you want.
All right, hold on. How do I usually?
Performance anxiety. The sign of a male lesser than Q.
I always go, this is too much food. Thanks for stopping by for another show. Please don't forget to rate, comment, favorite, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.